Thank you for those of you that are joining us to hear some of the topics that we covered in week 1 of Daniel and the Wealth of Nations. I'm glad you could join us. In our first week, we examined Daniel chapter 2, and Daniel gives a summary of a challenge that came into his life when he was serving the king of Babylon, the king Nebuchadnezzar. And that first year, first year that Daniel was serving, I believe, he heard that the king had had a dream that frightened him, and so he wanted everyone to give him anyone to give him an interpretation, and called everyone into the room and told them, "You give me the interpretation, I'll give you great reward and wealth. The only thing is that you have to tell me what the dream was first, and I'm not going to tell you what my dream was, and then you also have to tell me the interpretation." Well, Daniel, under pressure, knew that he had to do something because everybody's life was threatened. If no one could come up with the interpretation, they were going to execute all the wise men. So Daniel sought God, and God gave him the understanding of why he sent that dream to Nebuchadnezzar. And sure enough, this dream was of a giant statue. And he told Nebuchadnezzar, yes, this giant statue is a picture of 4 kingdoms. And in fact, you are the head of gold, O great king Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon. However, after you will come the second kingdom of silver. And Nebuchadnezzar was surprised by that, but he listened, and this was going to come over and take over after the Babylonians. And this would turn out to be the immediate Persian Empire. And then thirdly, after the silver kingdom would be the silver shoulders, the gold head, silver shoulders, bronze midriff. And that bronze midriff represented the third kingdom that was going to come and defeat the Persians, and that was Greece, as you remember, Alexander the Great. Then the fourth kingdom was made of iron and mixed with clay, and that was the legs. And Daniel said, this king is the fourth kingdom that will come and destroy the third one. And it turns out that this fourth kingdom, of course, was Rome. Rome defeated the Greeks. Now, this was something that Nebuchadnezzar certainly wanted to know, but also something that the Jews wanted to know. And that's because the Jews' fate was hanging in the balance. Babylon had defeated Israel, and Israel wanted to know if they would ever become free again and have a nation. And yes, they would be free. They would be, however, under the thumb of one of these nations for the next number of centuries. The dream, however, was focused as well, not only on the great man, but of a stone that came out of the heavens. And the stone came down and crushed this entire statue. And Daniel said, this king is going to be a kingdom that God sets up in the later days. And this kingdom will defeat all the other kingdoms, and itself will never be crushed. And so, as we know from the later prophecies, there was going to be a stem coming out of the root of Jesse, that is the nation of Israel. And that stem branch that would arise was going to be the Messiah. Now, the nation of Israel did not accept that Messiah, but Israel was going to be destroyed right after that time of Jesus of Nazareth. And the Christians spread from Judaism, from the land of Judah, across the Roman Empire. And as you remember, persecutions were oftentimes a problem. But later, in a couple centuries, 325 AD, Emperor Constantine made Christianity a legal religion. And at that point, it allowed Christianity to grow even more because it no longer was subject to persecution and other detriments. But as it turns out, he also defunded the temples later, and that gave Christianity another boost. And then after that, he, in addition, decided to take funds and fund the Christian churches. And Christianity grew and grew, and the Roman Empire became essentially a Christian empire. Now, as Rome fell in 425 AD, the barbarians came in And as the barbarians came in, that was the end of the Roman Empire. But Christianity did not end. The barbarians decided that Rome had many administrative techniques that they liked, and that Rome had many infrastructures and aqueducts and roads, and they would keep those. And they also allowed the Christian church and the influences of Christianity to continue. And as the history would unfold, the barbarians who spread out into Europe, those people groups were converted, even as you might recall the Irish Celtic people were pagans and had no interest in the monotheistic God, but they came through St. Patrick to become Christians. And by 1000 AD, Europe was a Christian empire, Christendom. Now, this is interesting for many aspects, but one of the course aspects we were looking at is Daniel. Daniel saw God's plan for the nations, and it was exciting and dramatic, both to Nebuchadnezzar and to Daniel. Now, this next week we're going to be looking at the Daniel chapter 3 through 7. You can read that, and also you can read from the book The Wealth and Poverty of Nations by David Landis. Daniel Landis. I'm sorry, it's David Landis, and you can see this book as it was published by Nelson Publishers of New York and published in 1999. You can also, and if you do have that book, read chapters 5 and 11 on the development of the spice trade from 1500 to 1700 AD. And if you don't have that book, you can just use an encyclopedic reference to study that period of time of the development of the spice trade, or you can look online for many of the sources that are made available there. So thank you for joining us, and I hope you can take part in, involve yourself in these studies, and we'll have another summary of class number 2 next week. Thank you so much.